If you're a Tesla investor, this is the conversation you don't want to miss. The latest earnings call just wrapped, but what really mattered? Did we get new info that could move the stock before year end? What should long-term buy and hold investors actually focus on heading into 2026 and beyond? To break it all down, we are joined by Nick Gibbs, one of the smartest Tesla retail analysts out there and host of a YouTube channel called Investing Against the Grain. So was it a good call or a bad one? Let's find out. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, Herbert. Thanks for having me.
Good. So I always turn to you to find out the sentiment in the stock. Where do you think it's going to go? You've called it correctly a number of times now. And most times you do go against the grain. A lot of people think one way, you think differently, and you've been proven correct a few times here. So we have just listened to the earnings call. What did you, before we even start talking about stock, what was your take on the earnings call?
Yeah. Well, before we even talk about my take on it, you start off by saying for buy and hold long-term investors, I would say anyone who is in Tesla one way or another, I think, what we're going to talk about is applicable to them as well. So just to throw a little nuance in there, not to excommunicate anyone. As far as the call goes, I thought it was a mixed bag of a call. Ironically enough, I think one of the last analysts who were asking some questions, I think he actually saved the call from really being kind of a pretty pitiful call, to be honest. And he was able to get Elon and the team to actually talk about some actual quantifiable metrics or phases of how FSD and robotaxis will roll out in a way that it seems like none of the other questions could get them to elaborate on. So, for example, in any market that they're going to start off, they'll probably start off with safety drivers in about 3 months, and then they'll pull them, little things like that. I don't remember all the questions, but that individual really got them to open up. And it kind of frustrates me a little bit because clearly they're not gating a lot of this information. Right. But it's like we have to find the right way to ask them for them to say it and tease it out. And it's like, guys, if you would just lead off with that and begin the call, your calls would go so much better. Like we'd get, like, you're obviously willing to talk about this. Why don't you lead with this? Like, it's not that complicated. You know what the people want to know. Like, you didn't have to wait for a question to come up to tell us, yep, we're planning on expanding by the end of the year to these places. We're on pace for removing the driver out of Austin by the end of the year. FSD 14's out, and we've got some more exciting iterations of it, including reasoning, whatever. And we're planning on going into 8 to 10 new areas by the end of the year, of which is Arizona, Florida, and you can see the other whatever out there. And it's like, if you would just, like, that should be your opening statement, not this other stuff that they're doing. So I think that part's a little frustrating, that we have to like tease out the very obvious things that they should be telling us that everybody wants to know. So I don't know. I get frustrated with that. And then I was a little nervous at the very end with Elon talking about his own comp package. And I was sitting there just like, no, just be quiet, Elon. Just stop. Because I was worried that he's going to say something that's going to get him in trouble. There's a lot of things he can say that's kosher, but there's a fine line between its coercion and something else. I forget what the legality term is that the SEC uses, but essentially he can give his opinion, but it's the threat that can become an issue. And when he started talking about humanoid armies, whatever, it's like you're creating almost a threat of what could happen if you're, and it's like, you're playing with fire here, man. Just be quiet. You're going to get the votes. Just be quiet. Just sit back and stop. Let everyone else do the dirty work for you, but you're the last person who should be talking about this. I don't think he crossed any lines too much, but it got my spidey senses up. But other than that, it was just a whatever earnings call, to be honest, for me. There's a few things that you can like try to squint at and be like, well, what do you mean by this? Or like you kind of read between the lines maybe. But I've found in the past that every time we try to do that, we're wrong more often than not. It gets us as a community to become a little more optimistic than what we should be, rather than just being grounded and just taking a beat and maybe tampering our own expectations. And so I've tried to iterate over time to be less optimistic on timelines, less grandiose on my thoughts about products and releases. And I think it's helped me become more of a accurate, I don't know, predictor, thinker of what the stock should be doing, what's going to happen. Because again, if you think that they're going to have 100,000 robo taxis out there by the end of the year, that changes a lot of your decisions with what's going on with the stock. You might choose to triple mortgage your house to put it into the company, because that would be game changing. So, but I guess those are my initial thoughts, and I'll probably say more as you ask questions. What were your
Okay.
thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you very much. I think that very little was shared in the actual deck itself, the financial deck. They removed some forward. Typically, they had these statements about what they're, they're sometimes guidance, sometimes not, but sometimes, letting you know what they're about to build. They didn't talk about anything of that. They didn't. They were muted on the deck about robotaxi. And then, like you said, they saved it in the Q&A section, the segment of the call. Why didn't you lead with that? And I just felt that maybe Elon does not prepare ahead of time. Do you think that he's actually reading a text, or is he just talking? He has bullet points, and then he just doesn't really say it there. But then later, when he's asked the question, he'll answer it. But the second half of the call saved it. But there was some big important info that was shared in the second half of that call in the Q&A. So that was good. Yeah, and I agree with you. I was getting very concerned at the very last bit. He was talking about Glass Lewis and ISS and how that they are terrorists, right? And like you
Yeah.
said, yeah, it's very, very careful. He's got to be careful. But, he gets very, very upset about that, and rightly so. But he is expressing it in this call. And it kind of ended the call with this anger instead of this optimistic, buoyant, we're doing incredibly well, which the company's doing really well in many ways, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember it's coercion threats beyond personal stance. So in other words, implying any company harm without Elon could be seen as manipulative and non-factual, and that could get him in trouble with the SEC. So that becomes that's what I was paranoid about. It's like, Elon, just shut up.
All right. Well, I want to hear from you, from your thoughts of how this will impact the stock. And like you said, there's several kinds of investors. There's the long buy and hold investors who don't really care about what's going to happen to the stock next quarter, next day, next weeks. But we do care about, is the company achieving fundamentals? Are they achieving the key milestones? And like you kind of hinted, they are, but there's also, you got to temper when you might think, these numbers will appear. And then there's the ones who are very concerned or very interested in putting bets in for what's going to happen this week, next quarter. So that's why I wanted to ask you. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So let me answer this my way. Okay. And
Okay.
let me reframe it, because you just framed it from your own thinking, right? You just called buy and hold people investors, and then you called everyone else people who are making bets. Let me be very clear. If you're
Kind of.
investing, you're betting. You are betting. In fact, I
True.
would argue if you're a buy and hold investor, you are gambling more so than people who are in the options markets. You're actually, I can mathematically prove that you are gambling more so than people in options, if you
Interesting.
want to look at it that way. But the truth is, we're all it's a fact. I can tell you when I'm going to get paid. I can tell you what my odds are at all times. You can't. In fact, I can tell you your odds. You don't even know your odds. I do know your odds. So there's a difference here. But in general, everybody, whether you're buy and hold, whether you're an index investor, whether you're whatever investor, you are here to make money at the end of the day. And so I take issue when people sit there and say, hey, it's been 5 years, nothing's happened. You're happy about that? I've been making money all 5 years. So you tell me who's the crazy one. Look at someone like Pete DiCarlo. He's made over $2 million in Tesla, and he's only been in it for a year and a half, because he stayed out of it until it was time to get in. So, just a level set there. We're all trying to make money at the end of the day. Now, with regards to Tesla stock right now, we are in a very 50-50 world right now with the stock. The stock, up until today, has been set up to really have a chance to get to all-time highs and beyond. again, people want to ignore option investors and all that, and they just want to talk about buy and hold. Well, it's the option investors that have set it up to hit all-time highs. Just be very clear about that. The flows that have come in are from option investors, and option investors are not gamblers. This is Wall Street. These are the big hedge funds. These are the people who have the big money. All right, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars coming into options for Tesla. Yep. Yes. So that's what's moving the stock. And there's a lot that have been put on for 2026 that have it set up to get into the 500s. So that has all been continuing on. And we've been seeing that really since, call it June, right? Not even April, not even May, but really since June. And we've been in a strong trajectory. Today is an interesting day because we didn't sell off. I mean, we're down, don't get me wrong. But we're kind of no different than where we were for most of the day with the market. The market itself was a down day in the market. So I don't think you can attribute too much of that with what was going on into earnings. But post market close, we're down 3.7%, which I know some people might be like, okay, it's not great, but it's could be worse. You're right. In fact, I would argue it is great. It is very great. The expected move was up or down about 9%. We're only down 3.7%. That is, and actually it's more up right now. It's just Webull doesn't show you. You have to look on Robinhood. So believe it or not, Tesla's stock performance after hours is actually fantastic compared to what was supposed to happen. So Tesla investors, anyone who owns shares, stock, options, or anything Tesla, it's good so far. However,
let me just interrupt and say that just to confirm that, or to let people know, we are recording this a few hours after the earnings call just ended Thursday, and so Wednesday, and so but this show will publish tomorrow morning or sometime in tomorrow Thursday.
Yeah, good catch, Herbert, on that context, because by the time people are watching this, it will be tomorrow, and you will know what's going to happen tomorrow. The stock has two paths ahead of it. It has, if it breaks 420 and goes below, it's going down. We're going probably down to very low 400s, if not like 380, 360, right? There's just no volume there. There's no support. There's no one there to step up the buy. But like I said, it has been on this upward trajectory. There's the 420 mark, what used to be, this time, well, maybe like back in December, right? Almost a year ago. December, 420 was like that barrier for us. It was like so hard to get past. Right. That has become a really strong support for the stock now, right? Amazingly. And so it is doing its job right now, holding up pretty well. But if it breaks, watch out below. On the other hand, like I said, there's been a lot of momentum. There were some really good things said on the call that could lead Wall Street to continue to be optimistic. And it seems like a lot of the momentum might be tied more so to November 6th than even this earnings call.
Yep.
I will say, I think it'll probably take a few days to shake out this earnings call, but by then it'll probably be time for the vote. But there were some good things that they just, in my opinion, failed to highlight. And
What are those good things? What are the big ones? The FSD removal of safety driver by the end of safety monitor by the end of this year?
Not even that. Let's big ones, fundamental to the business. All right. Before FSD or anything, we have $42 billion in cash.
Yep.
$42 billion in cash sitting here. The best
Free
we've
cash
ever
flow,
had.
$4 billion. Yeah.
Okay. So start there. Then why did we have such a strong deliveries result? Everyone's talking about it's because of the expiration of the EV tax credit. Really? Right. China up 30%. EMEA up 25%. North America up 30-something%. That is not just the tax credit expiring. That's bullish. All right. They should have hit the nail on that. Right. They should have said, like, yeah, obviously some of that came from the tax credit expiring, but there's no tax credit in China or Europe or Australia. Like, there's none. Right. So, and a lot of people who buy it can't qualify for it. I have 3 friends who bought Teslas. None of them can qualify for it. So it's not just the tax credit. They should have hammered on that. To your point, with regards to road taxi, why is it not the first thing that
First
they're
thing.
saying to mention that by the end of the year, we are planning
Yeah.
on being on another 8-something states in
Yeah.
Florida, in Arizona, that things are going good. We're seeing a lot of promise. We're trying to take it slow, and we want to be cautious because safety's first. But we feel very confident, and we are still on track to go into these other states. That should have been the
Yep.
first freaking words out of Elon's mouth.
Yeah.
They're not talking about the important things. They seem to be tone deaf on what they need to be talking about.
Hmm.
And that again, I know I'm going to get a million people saying, "Oh, Nick thinks he's smarter than Elon," or Warren
Hmm.
Radliff's going to be like, "Oh, Nick's got TDS or whatever it is,
It's
EDS."
EDS.
Yeah, and it's like, no, like everybody needs to stop thinking that this person is infallible. All right, he's made a lot of mistakes. All right, but no one calls it out. Right? It's not like everything Elon touches goes to gold. Solar study, trash. Tesla insurance, trash. All right. Elon's argument and fight with Trump, awful. You could have handled that much better. And now he's fighting with Duffy. That doesn't help anything either. So, like, it's not like Elon's perfect. He's not God over here. Okay. So, we need to take a beat on this. And maybe things would be a little better if Elon did get a little pushback from people who support him. Right.
Hmm.
Like, you can love, if you have a kid, you love that kid. You think that kid's so special, has so much opportunity, but it doesn't mean you just let them do whatever they want. You don't call them out when you think they're stepping out of line. That's all. And that's all this is. I'm just saying it's not just Elon either. It's the entire team there. They need to be better about handling their messaging. Again, we got the right stuff out of there. We got a lot of good stuff, but we know what we're looking for to listen for. If they could have just structured it up a better way, I think you see a big turnaround on how the whole call was, right? It's literally, if you would have taken everything I just said, front load that in the call,
Hmm.
people think this is the most bullish call ever.
Agreed with
That's
you.
all. That's all they
Yeah.
do. That's it. Just take what you said, front load that. It's the most bullish call ever.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. That's what I'm worried about is a little bit of it's one thing of how I took the call and what I'm looking at and what I heard out of it versus the people who are not following this that closely, or worse yet, the big money institutional investors who come away going, this was, because apparently Simon Hale, one of the portfolio managers, was saying that he knows for a fact, and he knows this, he's in the business, like JP Morgan and others, they actually run an AI to look at sentiment of the words said and the tone of the CEO in these earnings calls. And investing decisions are made on that, not just the short-term ones, but like generically, that's how they view these calls. And so, yeah, this was very, very muted. Didn't know if this was positive, and yet outcomes at the end, amazing things. Like things are absolutely moving forward and so forth. So there's nothing that I heard that was actually terrible. Some numbers were maybe pushed back a little bit. I was already telling people that I think that Optimus version 3 won't be revealed in Q1. And then, the production numbers capacity may not be as high as people were hoping for by next year. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of another little problem I would say is that the goalpost keeps moving.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, again, this is another place where I think we should be critiquing Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, guys, sandbag. All right. Under promise and over deliver, but you guys keep over promising and under delivering
because you overpromise so much. It's not, and then when you actually delivered whatever to deliver, it still kills and still better than anyone else out there. But if you just didn't overpromise so much,
and
right?
it takes away from the magic of the thing, like Cybercab production was supposed to start at the end of 2025 and ramp up in 2026. Now sounds like production starts in Q2 of 2026. Like that's a big difference, Optimus, you were going to show Optimus at the shareholder meeting. Now, maybe in Q1. It's fine. Like, I get it. These are very, very hard things. But the problem is control what you can control, and you can control
they never said
the
Optimus
messaging.
version 3, by the way, just FYI. They never said that. That's one of the debates I've been having with a number of people. They all expect that version 3 will be what's revealed at the shareholder meeting. And I'm saying, no, it's not going to be. He'll have Optimus version 2. Yeah.
Look, even, and again, like you guys all think that Elon's infallible and he doesn't do anything wrong, right? All right, everybody go out to their hardware 4 cars and go switch to advanced and tell me when you get
Yeah, he made a
14.1.2,
mistake saying
3.
that, right? Yeah, that's certainly not true.
Yeah, it's like, no, dude. You have analysts on this. You have a lot of people who are going to go out and be like, what the hell were you talking about? Or they'll just have version 13 and be like, oh, this isn't like as great as you're talking about. Like, it's good, but it's not. You made it sound like it's something otherworldly.
Sure.
But it's like those little things. Like, look, they matter. They do matter. In my opinion, I
Okay.
mean, like, if you care about the stock price at all,
Yeah.
which is what the question was about, it matters. If all you care about is the company, and you truly think like the stock price is like secondary to you, and it's like it's whatever. In 10 years from now, I won't even have to think about it. Okay, well, you better hope those next 10 years aren't like the past 5 years. We'll start there. But sure, then you're right. It doesn't matter. But I call BS on anyone who truly says that, because at the end of the day, everyone would prefer that every time we get off these earnings calls, the stock's up 10%, not everyone's sitting there waited, holding their breath like, all right, it's gonna, okay, we're okay. It's not crazy. We're only down 3%.
Yeah, there's certainly shooting himself in the foot. I would totally agree with you, because if you look at the company and you look at the progress, and again, don't base it on what was promised, but just the fact that it's building an Optimus humanoid robot, it's got pretty well solved autonomy. He said, "I'm 100% confident that the solved autonomy. We are seeing it. We're driving it ourselves, or it's driving us." And yet, stockers were at where it's at because they either overpromise, underdeliver, therefore it's negative, or just the tone and just things are. There's reasons why investors can go, "Oh, that was a terrible. This company's just terrible. They're about to crash."
Herbert,
Okay.
keep the tone. Leave your tone alone. But you know what? You start off with the call and
Yeah,
you sit there and
facts.
you say, yeah, we're planning on doing unsupervised FSD in Austin at the end of the year. That's still on track. We're going to
Hmm.
start there first. Again, safety first. But then, yeah, we're on track. And like, oh, okay. That's a big deal.
And if it wasn't asked, it wasn't going to be answered. It came
Exactly.
out for a Q&A section, not through the. I really don't think he prepared his statements. Okay, so back to stock, and I know you said it matters, but wait. So you said it can go either way, right? 420 is a key number. It can go down. It can go down. No support. It'll go down to 380, whatever number it can be. But if it's above 420, and then as we head into November 6th, and what's your thinking about the macro? What other bigger events that are happening? What's your call for the stock by the end of this year?
Yeah. So Tesla's up to 426 right now. So that's a good sign for right now. But be wary. And when I say like you got to kind of be wary, I would be wary for at least the
A
rest of this
magical three
week.
days? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it's let things shake out a little bit. And again, that doesn't mean you're doing anything, but there's a difference between going to bed and having your portfolio at all-time highs because Tesla did well, and going to bed and you're down about however many, down 20% on your portfolio. That's a big difference. Like I don't care who you are, like you sleep different. You just do. All right? Like you just do. You feel better. You walk differently. Like it's just you feel more confident, more secure. That's the beauty of money is that money. I know everyone says money doesn't buy happiness. I don't really believe that. Money gets you the ability to sleep peacefully. It allows you to solve problems. It allows you to not have to worry about bills. Now, that doesn't mean that it's the end all be all, right? You still have love and happiness, relationships, and being grounded in life and all that. But man, it sure is a lot easier to do all that when you're not stressed about bills and worrying about where you're getting your next paycheck or your retirement or whatever. But macro wise, zooming out, there's a lot of risk and there are a lot of very exciting things that could be coming. What do you want first? The scary stuff or the exciting
Let's
stuff?
start with scary stuff. Yeah, it's good.
Okay. So scary stuff right now is that we see I guess this time last week, we started seeing cracks in the regional banks having credit issues. All right. Now, some say it's a cockroach, and where there's one cockroach, there's more. Others say, hey, it was just a issue with a company who's committing fraud, and that's all it was, a nothing burger. Well, time will tell. It wasn't a kind of a nothing burger with Silicon Valley Bank, not a couple years ago. That was a one-off, but it was a scary one-off. So that is out there, right? That's hanging out there. You also have trade issues right now with the U.S. and China. Don't underestimate that. And as much as everyone might want to say it's a Trump thing, China's playing pretty hardball right now and playing pretty dirty. All right, based on what we know, they did have a deal. There was kind of a truce agreement and understanding, and now China's trying to Trump essentially. So that's not gonna. If that keeps ratcheting it up, get ready for another April. All right, so don't underestimate that, and remember, everyone needs rare earth metals. Everyone. So that's a big deal. And then you have the government still not open. All right. It seems like the Republicans are not going to cave here. The Democrats, I don't know what their angle is really at this point, because they already have such low popularity, and the people that they need to kind of win over, it's not this way. And it's not like the people who are more moderate, more center, the Democrats who went Republican for Trump. This isn't exactly what they're looking for per se, especially when the Republicans are proposing a clean CR, which is the exact same one that they just passed a few months ago, and now they refuse to do it. And then the whole reason why, because supposedly it's just to fund Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, which was supposed to be affordable, and yet here we are. So it gets messy, and the longer the government's shut down, the more we have split government like this. It's not even split government. It's like Civil War government almost, where it's like we won't even talk to each other. And rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. But he used to always say, when people stop talking, that's when violence happens. When marriages stop talking, that's when divorce happens. And I fear that there's not enough talking across the aisle right now. So that's another big risk. Where's that lead? Now, ultimately, I'm a pretty optimistic person. I think China gets sorted out. I think the government's going to reopen in the next week or two. I don't think it'll go on much longer. I think cooler heads will prevail. The Republicans only need, I think, 2 to 3 more Democrats to say, all right, enough's enough. There's already some Democrats, I think 3 Democrats that are voting with the Republicans saying this is not the way. One other little caveat, not to get political, but this is a path towards getting rid of the filibuster, which was the nuclear option the Republicans have. But it has been a sacred thing not to get rid of the filibuster this entire time. The problem is now you have the Democrats pulling their nuclear option, saying we're just not going to do anything. We're going to hold our ground. The Republicans never did that to them in the entire 4 years Biden was there. And now it's like, okay, well, you're not giving us a choice here. You're not playing fair. Democrats used to say that they want to get rid of the filibuster, but then they said they weren't. So it's like this back and forth. And it's like one said this, and then it's like, look, I'm not saying who's right or wrong. All I'm saying is a clean CR is a clean CR, and you guys already voted on that. So it's weird to be here. But I do think it gets resolved. And I think Fetterman will probably be one of the ones that kind of leads the charge on that from the Democrat side. And Fetterman's just becoming a rock star. Just, balls and strikes is kind of how he is. Anyways, I think that gets resolved. We do have one other issue kind of potentially lingering. And I don't know if it's a real issue or not, but right now with where we are with our debts and deficits, a lot of our debt's going to have to get refinanced here soon. And I think they're aggressively trying to bring rates down to deal with that. But we could talk more about that in the future. But those are kind of like the big risks I see right now. The only other ones I would say is we are at all-time highs. You just saw gold fall. Nobody seems to know why. You just hear lots of people talk about, oh, people are just taking profits, all that. No. The CME raised the margin requirements for gold. And then the Bank of China also raised margin requirements for gold. So CME raised it by 5 to 8%, and China yesterday raised it 10 to 15%. What does that mean? Lots of people went into margin calls immediately because they didn't have the cash reserves for the gold. This is a very classic signal of a top. So you got that, you got risk of AI bubble. So there's lots to be risky there, but there's also lots to be optimistic about. And so if you want, I can tell you what I see to be optimistic about.
Yeah. Yes.
So starting off, I don't think we're in an AI bubble yet. I think, everyone wants to make an analogy. Sorry, I can't speak. It's late for me. Between the dot-com bubble and the current time right now with the AI bubble, that you hear lots of comments about NVIDIA and Cisco, right? We hear that all the time. Lots of similarities between the two. Let me tell you some differences. During the dot-com bust, Cisco was the NVIDIA of the time, and they were building out infrastructure left and right. The problem is they're building out infrastructure to build it out, but no one had an actual use for it yet. NVIDIA, as Brad Gerstner says, there is no dark GPUs. Every GPU is being used full throttle. There's one example. Second example, which will organically tie into my next exciting thing, is that during the dot-com bust, they were in a rate hike cycle. We are in a rate cut cycle, which leads to the next, and that's another big difference, which leads to the next thing to be optimistic about the markets, is that we're going to get rate cuts next week or this week, next week. Next week, we're going to get rate cuts. And then December, we're going to get rate cuts again, right? So this is a easing of money. This will help money velocity. It's not great for increase of M2 supply, but it's good because it's going to make borrowing easier, which will stimulate the economy more, which is good for the stock market, which is good for Tesla, especially a company that has no debt, which is good for manufacturing. So you've got a lot of those bullish things going for it as far as the macro goes. And then, look, China will probably resolve. The government will reopen. And we are actually in a very strong position right now as an economy. I know a lot of people don't feel it. And I'm not, I talk a lot about how there are a lot of people struggling out there. But the truth is the economy is actually really strong right now. It is. We have lots of deflation going on. I know there's still some spots that people see it, but these things don't change overnight. But you have to see where the trend's going. And the trend is going to very good growth. Now, the problem is all the other stuff we talked about, the cracks, it just takes one thing and the market's already jittery. But the most optimistic thing that, against macro, I would say, is that everybody is fearful of recession. Everybody is fearful that we're in an AI bubble. And in my experience, when those two things are out there and people are fearful of it, it means we got room to run.
Yeah, understood. Great coverage of both the bad and the good. And so do you have a price target for Tesla? If everything goes well, as none of the negatives actually happen, I get that throws everything off. But let's say things are, either flat or good. What do you expect to do with Tesla stock by the end of this year?
Yeah, so I have a lot of short puts on. For people who don't know, I get so annoyed when people are like, "Oh, you're bearish." A short put is a bullish position, guys. A short put is someone who sells a put, not buy, sells a put in hopes to get a sign. Well, if it's cash secured, mine's cash secured.
If it falls,
so I'm hoping,
you have to.
Yeah, I will get to buy the shares. So I've got short puts on, hoping to get secured. If those don't come to fruition, I make money, I roll them up, life is good. So I am bullish right now. Going into the end of the year, barring, we take a dump here, I could see us hitting 500 to 550. I think I've been saying that since January. It's been the same, I told you, all-time highs by the end of the year. And I think what gets us there is probably a combination of Elon's comp package passing. Now, God forbid it doesn't pass.
I know. Yeah, so far, most people are saying that Kashi, the investing, the site is projecting a 94% chance that it's going to pass. Alexandra Mertz believes it's going to pass, regardless of Elon's statements, because you start to see him making comments about please vote and his issue with ISS and these proxy advisors. It still sounds like he's not doing that because he's afraid it's not going to pass. It's more like he truly is very upset about having this entity being able to control companies versus,
I think he's worried. I think he's
Okay, so
worried.
there you go. Interesting. Is he worried? And if he's worried, because first of all, just to be clear, Alexandra pointed out that Texas corporate law, you only need 50% plus one, anything over 50% to be able to get his comp package. And he gets the vote, and Kimball gets the vote. So that's 15% right there. Then you got the retail shareholders. Remember before, we already had 73%. That was like, previous. So a lot of bad things would need to happen for that to not pass the 50% mark.
But how
You
do
think
we
he's
get to
worried?
that 50? Well, yeah, I do.
Well, he thinks like, ARK Invest and, it's got some of the big boys that we already have, like BlackRock and Fidelity or, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know what the math is between, like you said, the board essentially, retail, Ron Barron, ARC,
Yeah.
just to understand like what that percentage looks like. But
Yeah.
it seems like it might be close.
Yeah.
I don't know. He seems worried to me. I don't think he's just saying this to say this, but and I hope I'm wrong. I hope
Mm-hmm.
he's not actually worried. I hope you're right. I hope he's just upset. Can I talk about one other risk that I do see
Yep.
out there? And this might be the biggest risk. Elon's poking the bear with Duffy,
I
with
know.
the
I know. Yeah.
Secretary of Transportation. There's no upside for Tesla with what he's doing. None. Zero upside. Yeah, I don't know. That's just risk. That's nothing but risk.
That's a big
So
one. Yeah. Yeah. Investors like us, we like to say don't overblow the risk because time and time again, we tend to overblow the risk. The Duffy one will just go away. The Trump one just goes away. These things. But yeah,
but the
if
Duffy
one
one
of them
can't just
sticks,
go away. It can't just go away because Elon needs a friendly administration that will help them get federal approval to be able to print more than 2,500 vehicles that don't have steering wheels and pedals.
okay, again, I mean, the same things were said when Trump, he was having his major battle with Trump that he was going to tell Duffy to do something. And, at the end of the day, they didn't end up doing that. But yeah, anything can happen.
Well, I'm not saying that
It's a
Duffy has to
risk.
do anything. Duffy just has to not do anything. And that's the risk. You want to motivate Duffy towards creating federal regulations.
I don't know if you need federal regulations, FYI. Each state has already got their own approval. Waymo's
Fair.
available in those states. Those are the same states that we're going to be going into. Everything he's
But
talked about, Nevada, Florida. You
it's a
don't need
cybercab, though.
federal
It's a
approval.
cybercab.
Cybercab, and that would be years from now, not
That would be 1 week of production with the cybercab line.
yeah.
2,500 vehicles. That's it.
Yeah, I think you can probably get that in like a state by state thing. Like I say, all of Texas and California alone, they'll approve it. I mean, Zoox is already available in a couple states, and so Vegas.
I get it, but it's the number that's limited.
Yeah, maybe. It's
having vehicles.
2,500 maximum. They need to change that, right? To be higher
Yeah,
than 2,500. Yeah.
And that's my point. So that's a risk because then what do you do with this line that you just spent all this time building out? And I guess that's where Farzad's idea comes in with the steering wheel and pedals.
Sure. Yeah. If you're forced to, that's why they built the car this way. Yeah. That was written in the Walter Isaacson book. Elon initially wanted a, first principle version of robotaxi, which is what I was proposing for so long, which is, more like a Zoox, right? You don't need the front and back. You don't need anything in the middle. You want the seats back and, to be able to face each other. But, they said, you know what, let's, in case regulatory issues, FSC is not available, let's make it like something that we could turn into a drivable car.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
But overall, Herbert, I think the fact that we didn't sell off more is optimistic for the stock.
Optimistic,
I
right?
do still think that we can hit the 500, 550 by end of year.
Yeah.
Again, barring anything I laid out, we'll see what happens. And I think the next few days will be very
Anything
telling.
you hear from the earnings call that changed your forecast for the stock for next year, 2026?
Not 2026 per se, but made me very confident for deliveries in Q4. Elon says something really interesting, which I think gives more credence towards Farzad's reiteration recently, where everyone dunked on him, except for me, I defended him, about putting a steering wheel and pedals into the cybercab form factor. Elon said, he was really hesitant about going all out on volume and building more vehicles until recently. And now he's ready to go all out. And he mentioned that was just interesting, like just really weird that he's been resistant to building out like crazy. And they're not going to build new factories. They don't have any other lines. The only thing that's coming up is the Cybercab line. So that's interesting. So that plus how they broke down where the numbers came for the quarter on deliveries, that made me think that Q4 could be pretty strong. It could be the same as Q3, if not maybe better. Like I think there's a shot there.
Okay. Yeah, I think I interpreted it differently than you guys just did. His comment that I was afraid to build a production capacity until now, it's all about autonomy. You're not going to build, he doesn't want to build what he called horseless carriages. I'm going to Giga Mexicans all going to make more drivable cars. He said, no. Now that I know autonomy is 100% confidence here, I'm now going to go and build mass production of autonomous cars. We're done. We're done with drivable cars. Now, what he said was we're kind of that horseless carriage thing where we still need to create these drivable cars for now. So I wasn't thinking that, that means he's going to all this increased capacity is for drivable cars. In fact, it's the opposite. The increased capacity is going to be for cybercabs.
The only other thing that I heard, the way I interpret it was he talked in the call. I felt like his plan, his strategy is not to have mass cybercabs out the gate. His strategy is to have us put our vehicles in the fleet out the gate. I thought it was going to be the other way for a while, where they just want to own it and control as much as possible. But this earnings call made me think, no. Wait, he said it's going to be a shockwave. And the only way you get a shockwave, in my opinion, is all of a sudden you let everybody who has a vehicle put their vehicle into the fleet. That's a shockwave, where all of a sudden, boom, at the snap of a finger, you've got thousands of vehicles in every city. We're not waiting for Cybercab.
Yep. Totally agree with that. That's still part of the plan. Okay. Well, thank you so much. That was fantastic. You always come with, first of all, thorough thinking, which I appreciate. The macro is something you can't ignore as any investor. You're very good about understanding about what's going to happen in the very short term, the sentiment of this call. All that does matter, right? Because it does set up the stage of whether or not this stock is going to run. But the key milestones, they're being hit. Don't overestimate. You said don't fall for the, sometimes Elon will say some big number, then they ratchet back down again to something more actual realistic. But he should have said it at the very beginning, and they didn't do that. But people like us are at least pulling it out. And so hopefully, so far, I think it's a good call. It was a good call. Bad, you can say both, right? It was a bad call, but also a good call. At the end of the day, the key milestones, the last few questions made it a good call. If they didn't say those answers, it would have been a bad call.
It was a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Nick. Follow him on his YouTube channel. This is the stuff that he's so good at. It's called Investing Against the Grain, and just the name of that, you can tell he's very different thinker than most people that I have on this channel. So I like to bring him back once in a while, and sometimes we kind of like butt heads, especially on our live streams that we do on Wednesdays. It makes it a lot of fun. Smart guy. Thank you so much, Nick. Appreciate you.
Cheers, Herbert.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.